I'm always happy in Pennsylvania. The people, the places, and the scenery are always so welcoming. So I jumped at the opportunity to return to Western PA and fish with my friend Todd DeLucia. Hello everyone and welcome again. This week, we're in Western Pennsylvania in the Pennsylvania Great Outdoors region, and we're staying at the Castle Garden B&B. This week, we're going to be river fishing for smallmouth bass, which is one of my favorite things to do. We're going to be with Keystone Predator Outfitters, and we're going to be covering a lot of water and a lot of tactics. So stay with us, because that's coming to you next on The New Fly Fisher.
Ooh, that's a nice sized fish.
Good fish.
The New Fly Fisher is supported by Pennsylvania Great Outdoors Visitors Bureau, Orvis Fly Fishing, Scientific Anglers, Trout Unlimited, WeatherTech Canada,
While visiting Pennsylvania's Great Outdoors region, we stayed at the Castle Garden Bed and Breakfast, located in the town of Driftwood. The Castle Garden has 4 rooms and can accommodate 8 guests. The owner and operator, Donna May, includes an outstanding full-service breakfast, complete with all the fixins, and overall, the B&B is more than comfortable and offers all of the amenities, including Wi-Fi. The house sits on several acres, on the banks of one of the many picturesque creeks in the area, surrounded by lush mountains and an amazing array of wildlife just outside the back door. The weather conditions on our first day started out to be bloody near perfect. Glassy calm and a little overcast. However, the river conditions, as pretty as it was, were unforgivingly clear, and my first thought was that finding big, educated bass was going to be a challenge. So Todd, I got 2 rods. I've got the intermediate line and a floating line for poppers. What do you think we should lead into today?
So today we do have a chance of some storms coming in a little later today. So I think with that storm coming in, the skies they're kind of blue right now. They're a little overcast too though in spots. But I think let's start with poppers. The water's pretty low. See if we can just make some nice soft pops here and there. See if we can get some fish to bite. And if that doesn't work, we can go underneath and try crayfish patterns and some minnow patterns. They always seem to work. So, and there are probably hundreds of these guys just bouncing around our feet. So I suspect that today crayfish patterns will work really well. We'll figure out something today.
This is a 10-pound test, 8-foot bass leader. It's shorter than your standard trout leaders, which are typically 9 feet. There's a reason for that. That slightly shorter length just makes the whole thing a little more manageable. So if I was fishing a 9 or a 10-foot leader with poppers, I would typically cut a couple of feet off, again, just to make it a little more manageable when casting. The fly turns over better. But you want to go with as stout a leader as you can and as short a leader as you think you can get away with when you're fishing poppers. We're just going to attach the popper straight to this 10-pound end and give it a go. All right, let's do it. Smallmouth bass are unquestionably structure-oriented, and in this area of PA,
the beats that we fished had a ton of rocky structure, so that's what our obvious targets were.
So Rob, I'm sliding around these rocks, and then once we get around them here, I'm gonna kind of work in between them, and you just pick apart pockets as we go.
Okay. There's a little guy.
Like that.
Just like that?
Hey,
Oh,
gets the stink off the boat.
Exactly. We haven't seen any big fish, but we just started.
Don't discount woody debris in the form of sunken logs, downed trees, or log jams, and particularly in low water, focus heavily on the deepest runs and depressions, as these fish will seek out cover and depth for safety wherever they can find it.
Oh, that might be a better fish.
Nice.
No, it's just an aggressive take. He wants to go right back in there. This is a better fish.
Oh yeah. There we go.
Go ahead, Todd. You can manage him. Look at him yakking up crayfish.
Nice fish.
We've definitely identified that the fish are very big structure oriented, and they're tending to be in the deeper pockets and slots along this bank for the most part. But if you look behind me here, you can see there's a lot of rocks. With every one of these rocks that you can see, there's also submerged structure. That's where the fish have really tended to be hanging. So we're just dropping our popper in and around those and working it back through and just hitting targets along the way as we go. So far, it's been working out pretty well.
We don't always have control over the size of the fish that we cast to, and with the low water, high percentage areas were few and far between. The smallmouth bass in rivers have a broader range of travel than one might think, and larger fish will tend to seek out the deepest parts of the river. With this historically low water, those areas were a challenge to find. So I'd say to that, take what you're given and have fun with it and learn from it. There's something to be said about consistent action, no matter what we fish for.
That's a better fish. I bet on that. No, that's not bad. It's
Not bad. No, not at all.
When you're fishing from a boat like this, folks, it's hard to manage your line when you got a decent fish on. This guy's he's fighting above his weight class, but I'm not going to risk getting the line on the reel. I'm just sort of stripping it at my feet. If it was a real big fish, they'll generally take them to the. You can generally get them on the reel pretty quick, but still they fight hard. Smallmouth bass in rivers are.
They're different fish.
They are, and you got to remember too that I'm using 10-pound test here. You're leaning on them pretty good. But if you were fishing these fish with little panfish poppers and 4-weights, you'd have a riot. I mean, I'm lean. Look how fat he is. He's got a belly full of food. When you're fishing poppers in a river, it can be a little more difficult to get the action on the popper that you want, but there's a couple of things that you can do depending on what you're looking for. If I just want a very subtle pop, I'm just going to strip it with the fly line, just like that. If I want to make a more aggressive pop, I'm going to use the rod tip and the strip at the same time and make a real aggressive, big water moving pop like that. So depending on what the fish are doing and depending on the type of water that you're in, you may want to fool around with your retrieve just to find out what the fish are digging more than the next.
Throw a few poppers in there, and this is probably a good spot to once the action ends, maybe throw the crayfish on and we'll go into that hole.
Okay. Nice. Once again, we called it, Todd. You know this river.
Ooh. Nice.
You know this river.
That's a respectable fish.
Yeah. Well, we've certainly had our fun with poppers, but we haven't got any big fish yet. So we're thinking, in order to upgrade, we might have to switch things up. All the fish, the majority of the fish that we've been catching have been showing crayfish, regurgitating crayfish. So I've got a crayfish on my other rod. It's got an intermediate line on it. And we're just going to see if maybe we can get a big PA fish. Depending on the crayfish pattern that you're using, there are a number of ways to fish it. This pattern happens to be tied what I consider clouser style with the heavy eyes forcing the hook up. So with a pattern like this, you can effectively bottom bounce this, especially during tough conditions when you really need to slow your pattern down. You can fish this right off the bottom almost, and you're just feeling it, really not doing anything to the line, just letting it run along the bottom. And any movement in the fly line, any stop like that, you're going to set the hook. Certainly with aggressive fish though, crayfish are much stronger swimmers than a lot of people give them credit for. And I'm not afraid to strip that with long, sharp strips, because a crayfish underwater, when it thrusts, it can move, it can close big spaces in a hurry and fast. So keep that in mind. If it's tough conditions, fish it slow. Just a little bottom bounce, watching the rod tip, watching the line. And if the fish are aggressive, don't be afraid to speed it up with relatively long, sharp strips. Keep that in mind during tough conditions or when the fish are aggressive. Crayfish are a huge part of the smallmouth diet, and it's a great pattern to fish.
After no success with crayfish, which is odd,
It's interesting. I'm not getting hardly any f***ing love
That's weird considering all the crayfish are puking up.
from this. Maybe it's not a good pattern.
So the crayfish don't seem to be working right now, even though everyone we catch is puking them up, but it's not working. So we'll try a little swim fly here. Just a local pattern that we use here. It's just a nice imitation of bait fish.
and even trying Todd's deadly custom swim baits, we went back to what was working: poppers on the surface.
Good take. Definitely a good take. I love smallmouth in the river.
That's a decent fish. Oh, too deep. There we go.
Come here, darling. If you told me I was going to come out and catch one 20-inch fish or 15 of those, I'd say give me on the surface. I'd say give me 15 of those.
The storm, forecasted for later in the day, rolled in a little sooner than we expected, so we decided to push through before it got worse. Better to live to fight another day. The following morning, Todd and I traveled to another sector on the river for a change of scenery.
This is our second day in the Pennsylvania Great Outdoors region. Although yesterday we hooked a lot of fish, we didn't get any real big fish. So today we're doing a new drift, and we're gonna concentrate on looking for some trophy smallmouth. Let's get in the water.
Let's hit
I'm
her.
ready.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. I think I'm gonna start with the popper again. Now, it's not every day that you have better success on topwater gear than you do with subsurface presentations for smallmouth bass. But yesterday, we did. So we're going to continue with that today. Our approach is going to be looking for anywhere that you basically can't see the bottom. The river is low, so we're thinking the fish are going to be concentrated. That's what we're going to continue to do. Just hit targets, run our popper through there, and hopefully we can land a couple of big smallies today.
Staying versatile and using different presentations, particularly when the fishing is on the challenging side, is more often than not a good approach. Having a second rod at the ready and switching, in this case, from topwater to subsurface just gives you a broader range and a quick alternative to find a fish that might not be into looking up.
Well, we ran this popper through here. It's a nice, good depth little pool, lots of boulders. I put the popper through, but I don't want to leave before we run a bait fish through there. So we're going to go back to this pattern that we were using yesterday.
Rob, we started at this pool's a little bigger. We started at the top with the popper, and we switched to the streamer to cover underneath. Now we're at the bottom of the pool. Let's just try that popper one more time to say we covered the whole thing with
Those
top to
rocks,
bottom.
yeah. In there?
Yeah, just downstream of it. See how it's just a little softer water there? Still a little bit of depth along the bank.
We're just gonna freshen things up. We've been using white, and there's really no reason for it. We've been using white and catching fish, but the white one was starting to get a little beat up. It lost the hackle. So I said, let's just try something different. And I never mind fishing green and olive for bass in this clear water. And there's no restrictions on this river. I pinch the barbs down as much for self-preservation. You know, I think it's as important to have confidence in the fly that you're fishing as it is the color. I mean, nothing gives you more confidence than hooking a bunch of fish, but during slow periods, if I'm working that fly and I like the action that it's creating, which I do in this one, and I like the color, I like greens and olives for smallmouth bass, real clear water, I just feel more confident. So therefore, I'm going to fish it differently. I'm going to fish it with a little more diligence than I would in a fly that I was just kind of putting the time in with. So when you're choosing your fly, make sure you feel it. Make sure you're confident in it and you think it's going to work. One thing I should mention here is we're considerably further away from the bank than I would like to be. But because the river is so clear and this water is so still, we're trying to keep the boat and the noise from the boat as far away from the fish as possible. So as I'm working along this bank, with my polarized sunglasses, I can see pretty well. I'm constantly looking for my next target. It might be a submerged boulder or a depression, but as I'm working my way along here, I've got one eye on the popper and one eye on my next target, so that I'm prepared on my next cast to hit the next target and eliminate a lot of sort of aimless casting.
I know that I should never be surprised with anything that happens during fishing trips, but what a difference a day makes. Regardless of how good the conditions seem and how right everything is, the fish don't always cooperate. All you can do is experiment and change things up.
I've decided to go in a little different direction. We are having a hard time finding fish today. And we started with a popper and moved a couple of fish, but it certainly wasn't fast and furious like yesterday. Again, it just goes to show you, you can't predict what the fish are going to be doing. But now we're going to, we went through a couple of different swim baits and a finesse sort of Helgramite bait. Still struggling with finding the fish. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with an old trick that I've used many times. I'm going to suspend a nymph of some sort under a popper. So the idea here is the popper gets their attention, and if they're not into coming to the surface and eating that, they may just be enticed by having that woolly bugger or Helgramite sitting under it by about 18 inches. So the popper serves as two purposes. It's the attention grabber as well as a strike indicator. So I'm just tying a piece of 3X fluorocarbon tippet material straight onto the hook with a clinch knot. And that's what I'll use to suspend. I think in this case I'm going to go with an olive woolly bugger because it's one of those flies that just seldom fails you. Oh, bloody time. It took the popper, but man, and again, it's not a big fish, but we are having to work our tails off today for even these guys. It's just been, and again, if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. There's no guarantee from one day to the next.
I suppose it's good to get your butt kicked once in a while, as it shows us that no matter one's skill level, years of experience, or knowledge of the fish that we're casting to, sometimes they just don't show up to the party.
Well, what a difference a day makes. Yesterday we had action all day long, and today we've had to fight for every bloody take. It just goes to show you there's no guarantees in fishing, but we're going to do something different tomorrow and try another beat.
After this tough day of fishing, we headed back to the castle garden for some much needed rest. But first we took a quick detour to see one of the many beautiful sights that the Pennsylvania Great Outdoor Region has to offer, the Top of the World Lookout, as it's referred to by locals. This attraction rises to 1,300 feet and offers a breathtaking 360-degree panoramic of the area. It was the perfect ending to the day.
It's our third day smallmouth fishing here in the Pennsylvania Great Outdoors region, and we've had 3 very different days. Yesterday was hot as heck with a big bluebird sky, and the fish were really off. 180-degree turn from the day before. Today, however, we've got a little bit of overcast. We had a bump in the river last night due to some substantial rain, and today we're going to keep doing what we're doing, working top water, subsurface, just see what it takes to turn these fish on, and hopefully get a couple of large smallies today. So I'm going to be concentrating on deep depressions behind rocks. Although the river did come up a little bit last night, we're still looking for those most likely looking haunts, ambush points in the deeper depressions around rocks. As I said before, anywhere that you can't see the bottom. We're seeing lots of small fish out here in the open, but I don't think the big fish are going to be out hunting in these conditions with the high sky. Their range of vision is much stronger, and they're able to pick up on birds of prey. I guess birds of prey are really the big thing, but
Robs of prey,
fishermen. But their vision, just as your vision is increased with the high sun, their vision is also increased. So we're going to be looking for points of concealment, anywhere that they can hide and just feel safer. Whoa, you got it. That's a better fish. That's a better fish. That's what I was saying, folks. We're going to concentrate on those likely looking spots. That was so subtle. I almost thought about pulling the fly away from that because it seems so insignificant. Look at him. He wants to go right back into those rocks. Look at him go, eh?
Yeah.
They know, man. I'm telling you.
Try not to knock him off.
He wants to be under that boat. I'm going to get you to process him.
There we go. Nice
That's
fish.
a good fish. There you go, buddy.
Fish.
That's certainly a better fish than what we've seen. Hopefully that's indicative of what the day is going to bring.
That's the quality fish we're looking for. Right
Yeah,
there.
for sure. Beauty fish. Whew. Nice one. That was good. Thanks. That's what we're looking for.
It is.
You know, and as we talked about earlier, that's exactly where that fish was. There was a deep depression and shade, concealment. Those big fish, we're not going to find those big fish out here, and it's going to be tough. But we keep looking for spots like that where they can get a little bit of comfort, and I think that's where we're going to find the bigger fish.
Yep.
Let's get another one.
All right.
We continued to pound the banks and stick to our game plan and had more than enough action to keep us busy. There are few things that I love more than fishing topwater for smallies, and this classic river has more than enough popper water for any skill level. I suspect that with normal flows, one wouldn't need to cast much more than 30 feet to get the job done. As can happen on any day while bass fishing, the topwater fun slowed down. When this happens, switch things up, but be sure that what you go to makes sense. In this case, it was our observations over the past couple of days that precipitated our fly choice.
Do you have a go-to crayfish pattern? So I like the idea of using a crayfish because the majority, probably half of the fish that we've hooked have yacked up a crayfish. So this is one of Todd's faves. I'm going to put that on, fish it low and slow.
We relied heavily on Todd's experience in the region for our fly selection, and that consisted mainly of patterns to mimic the natural forage. For bait fish patterns, we had success with Clouser minnows, game changers, and some of Todd's own sculpin patterns. The crayfish pattern that produced the most results was the belly scratcher cray. This is a terrific pattern that makes a lot of commotion on the bottom and really turns heads. For surface patterns, Garden variety poppers in black, chartreuse, yellow, and white did the trick when the bass were looking up. The rods we use this week are as follows. For most of our topwater presentations, we use 6 weights paired with matching reels and floating lines. And for the majority of our subsurface fishing, we used 8 weights with intermediate sinking lines.
Jesus, they're hitting it, but man, there we go. Fish on. It's a nice little fly, Todd. Ooh, there's all kinds of fish in here. I thought it was a larger fish, but I think it was several small fish, yeah. Go back in there. They're chasing it. They're following it. I wouldn't actually say they're chasing it, but it's just like it was yesterday. With this high sun, they're just that much more vigilant. They're so tentative. We're gonna wrap things up for today. We've had a terrific morning. Got a good number of fish this morning, but the heat really kind of beat us up this afternoon, and 2 days in a row of that has taken its toll. So we're gonna head in early, get some rest, and hit it again tomorrow. So we're doing something different today, heading up into the hills, and we're going to be fishing wild and native brook trout in these mountain streams.
A lot of Pennsylvania at the turn of the century, prior to the lumber industry taking over the area, there was, the stream we were fishing, warm water fish yesterday, smallmouth bass, we would have been fishing for 2-foot brook trout. But at the turn of the century, we started cutting a lot of our timber in Pennsylvania, and these hillsides that you've seen all week, at the turn of the century, were completely bare. They cut almost every tree we had. There's very few virgin timber stands left in Pennsylvania. So, as you can imagine, brook trout being a cold water species, that was not good. And then, people coming over to the United States, we brought brown trout in from Europe, rainbow trout from the West Coast, and just over time between that and the streams warming up from the deforestation and sedimentation from all the basically the dirt on the hillsides washing in, it displaced all our brook trout up into these smaller, super cold, clean, small mountain streams. And over the years, it's just when things grew back up, nothing really changed. It just stayed that way, and now our trout are up in these mountain waters. See, like that log coming down, there's that soft eddy there, and then there's the smaller stick beside it. There's like a softer water beside the stick there. Nice.
You called that, Todd. Right off the bat. Little brookie, look at him. Todd nailed that. We're fishing these little plunge pools. It really doesn't look like these would hold a fish, but as we're working our way up here and going from sort of plunge pool to plunge pool, you really have to be stealthy. Just the click clack of the rocks will put these fish down. So each target that we're hitting, we're probably only going to spend a couple of minutes in each one. You get one fish and then move on. But you got to be really stealthy. And as you're going up, it's so tight in here, you got to kind of pre-plan where your back cast is going to be and how you're going to approach it. Otherwise, you're just going for a walk in a river.
Don't be afraid to let the fly hit a tad harder.
Okay?
Just that's all it takes is to get their attention.
There's one.
So the more likely looking stuff, like Rob was hitting, that has a nice plunge pull with a riffle with little eddies, those are the more obvious places. But if you look ahead, just even the time, you know, most of the riffles like 6 inches deep, just a 12-inch depression is enough to hold one of these brook trout, and they'll, you know, when the water's like this, you could pick off 4 or 5 fish just in this next 25, 30 yards.
Masterful.
All right, that little pocket there. So while there's a little bit less percentage of a fish in those pockets, it's important to hit them, because if we start walking up through here and we spook a fish and they bolt up into the really nice plunge pull, it ruins the hole. So we want to pick those little fish apart before we get to the heart of something, just for that reason alone. All right, that's probably enough to blow that hole. Once this fish see that flash and something's wrong, that's it for that hole. Not a big one. They're terribly pretty. So we're in a real tight situation here where I can't really make an overhand cast, so I'm just slowly picking stuff off as I move forward, roll casting, and hoping to pick up a fish as I work to the best part of the hole, which is where everything's funneling off that rock, and a real good spot for fish to be sitting and picking off bugs that are floating by. There we go. I think that's a better one too.
It is the challenge. Come here, Darren. Come here. All right, settle down, settle down. Settle down. I'll put you back. Pretty little brookies. This is this is a hoot. I mean, you know, it's not about the size of the fish when you're doing this. It's about the challenge. And Todd and I are just picking our way, just having fun, working our way upstream, and sort of one of us gets a couple of fish, and then we just switch up and the other one watches, and it's
Leapfrog.
It's leapfrog. It's just, I mean, if you ever wanted to have a fun competition, if Todd wasn't so afraid of me, this would be a good time to do it.
Although the fish were small today, they are nonetheless beautiful and wild, just like the area where they live.
Oh, it's so tiny.
With tomorrow being our last day, we turn in early in anticipation of a daybreak start, and hopefully hooking a couple of those trophy Pennsylvania smallies. During the night, a massive storm rolled in and dumped another pile of water on the region. However, by morning, it had blown through and gave us a mild and pleasant beginning to our final day.
It's our last day in Pennsylvania's great outdoor region, and there's foul weather coming in. We made the decision last night to get up at the crack of dawn and hit it early before that happened. As you can see behind me, the river is as smooth as glass, conditions are near perfect, and we got one last shot. So we're really hunting for a couple of big fish this morning. I've decided to forego the popper and go subsurface with a fairly big fly, just thinking it may eliminate some of the smaller fish grabbing it and sort of weed out the lunkers, if you will.
Despite our best efforts and using every tool that we had,
Here's a little guy.
the larger fish were simply not cooperating.
Come here. We said this morning we had high expectations today. It was, as I said, near perfect conditions right off the bat, but it has been uncommonly slow. And after talking about it, the only thing that we can figure out is over the last 2 days, the water temperature has come up about 12 degrees. It's currently about 78 degrees, and it was 69 degrees when we started 3 days ago. So, the point is, bass fishing, a lot of guys say smallmouth bass are easy. Those that say that don't fish them very much, because we've gone through 3 really odd phases this week with big storm and all this terrible heat, and these fish are really, really tentative. So all I can say to that is keep at it, fool around with your retrieve, fool around with your presentation, and hopefully find something. But I'll tell you this, when bass are off, they are off. What we've done here is resorted to nymphing. We've tried just about everything that you can this morning, and it's been tough. So this is a fairly garden variety, tight line nymphing technique. I'm almost leading the fly. It's a heavy fly, and I'm leading it down until it starts to swing up. Make a couple of casts at that length, and then lengthen it. So for the first portion of the cast, I'm gonna introduce some slack and allow it to sink. Then once I get it to the depth I want, I'm just gonna pick it up and let it bounce along the rocks, almost leading the fly. There we go.
Oh,
good fish too.
nice.
This is
Really
what we
solid.
were saying. But being versatile, not getting complacent and just giving up. We've tried everything this morning, and I had a hit. As soon as we went in there, I had a hit, and it was a good fish too. You said that was a high percentage area to take a decent fish. Nice.
There we go.
Nice. Good fish.
Thanks.
We worked for that one, Todd. You got him, pal.
We had to resort to nymphing.
We worked for that one.
There's the fly in its mouth, the Helgermite.
The weather didn't cooperate on this day, and we were forced off the water after hearing several severe weather warnings. It wasn't without its learning points, though, and as I've stated previously, when smallies are off, they can really be off. Regardless, it was an experience that I'll put in my journal. If you're looking for a fly fishing retreat or a getaway with family and friends, we can't recommend more Pennsylvania's Great Outdoors region. We want to thank our friends at the Pennsylvania Great Outdoors Visitor Bureau Donna May from Castle Garden Bed and Breakfast, and of course, Todd DeLucia of Keystone Predator Outfitters. To watch other episodes in our series, check us out on the web at thenewflyfisher.com or visit us on YouTube. Until next time, good hunting, and as always, we look forward to seeing you on the water.
The New Fly Fisher is supported by Pennsylvania Great Outdoors Visitors Bureau, Orvis Fly Fishing, Scientific Anglers, Trout Unlimited, WeatherTech Canada,